Welcome to Moon and Fire. I'm Emily Bailey, the founder of Whole and Wild, where I guide women back to their sacred wisdom through ritual and cyclical living. This is a podcast for women who are ready to remember their sacred cycles, reclaim their radiant fire, and unleash their intuitive magic. Today, I'm thrilled to be in conversation with Adriana Tantau, who is passionate about helping women reconnect with the wisdom of their menstrual cycles. What I love about Adriana's approach is how she makes menstrual awareness simple, practical, and powerful, showing women how to align their entire lives and businesses with their natural rhythms to prevent burnout and start living in flow. Adriana brings a refreshing perspective on what true consistency looks like, not pushing through regardless of where we are in our cycle, but living in sync with what she beautifully calls our inner seasons. Her message that our bodies are speaking to us all the time resonates so deeply with our Moon and Fire community. Adriana, thank you so much for joining me in this sacred space today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here with you, Emily. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to start by just hearing about your journey into the menstrual cycle work. You mentioned that you only started learning about your cycles when you became sober at 35, and that's when you
Mm.
discovered your period pain wasn't normal and were diagnosed with PMDD. Could you share more about how that awakening led you to this work?
Yeah, it's just wild, isn't it? That like up until 35, I feel like with knowing the knowledge that I have now, like I really was walking around with a blindfold on. Like, of course, I was stumbling through life so
Right.
much. And and I think, what was just so frustrating is that I had a bit of a troublesome childhood. There were just some, things weren't very linear for me growing up. There was a bit of childhood trauma. I got into drugs and alcohol really early to suppress a lot of emotions. But
Mm.
I was seeking help. Like my parents took me to, psychiatrists, to GPs, all this time. No one ever asked me about my cycle. Uh, I went to the GP about my painful periods, and I think, yeah, I had acne in my teen years. So I was put on the pill. And that was it. You just go on the pill and take it. And I went on it for 8 years. And I think I read an article or there was something online that sort of scared me off. They were like, "Do you actually know what's in it?" Blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh, if I didn't have to take this every day, awesome." Because I'd forget half the time too. Like, because
Right.
I was partying, I was taking drugs, I was, doing all the things. Half the time I forgot. So my poor cycle. I look back and I'm like, oh, the damage I did. So yeah, it was amazing that nobody picked up on it, that I had all these, all these emotions and and I just had so many highs and so many lows. And no, yeah, that was so frustrating. But so when I got to 35, I finally got sober. Best decision of my life. And for the next few months, it was, I went traveling. I was in a really good space. And then I came home, and if there's anyone out there listening that experiences PMDD symptoms, they understand that suddenly like you have this thing called doomsday. It's probably like one of the, and you can have multiple ones of these where it's just it feels like the whole world is closing in on you. It gets really quiet, and I suppose everyone has it feels different, has different experiences around this. But for me, it felt like the world was closing in. It got really, really quiet. I thought there was something severely wrong with me. And I suddenly was just having these voices in my head, and they were it was scary and eerie. Like they were soft, and they were just like telling me that your time's up, that you're not worthy of being here. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is, it's time to go, kind of thing. And I'm like, what? I'm like, but I'm so grateful that I had meditation practice for
Uh,
the last 5 years. So I knew that voice wasn't my voice. I'm
wow.
like, yeah, so I was sitting there going, hang on a second. I mean, because I had experienced suicidal ideation growing up as a child, so that I felt like I could remember that, and I'm like, that's not me. This is not real. And I think I just passed out. Like it was just so, like I was in so much rage and crying and sobbing. And I remember just falling in a heap and falling asleep. And I woke up the next day and I got my period. Now, at that point, I still hadn't made a connection. It wasn't until later on. So, and then a few months, maybe 2 or 3 months after that, I went and saw a naturopath. Actually, sorry, no, rewind. I went to, which is the most bizarre moment, it's just that it's this divine moment that happens in your life. I went to go to the dentist, and just to also add, I had debilitating period pain up
Mm,
like since I got my periods. I was always medicated. I used to medicate myself before, like if I had any inkling that my period was coming, I would get the ibuprofen, and then eventually I was put on harder prescription drugs for it because it was just so debilitating, and I never wanted to experience that pain, so I kept masking it through drugs. I went to the dentist. The dental nurse asked me, "How you going?" And I said, "Oh, I'm great now. I've just double dropped my ibuprofen." And she said, "Why are you taking that?" And I said, "Oh, I've got really bad period pain." Now, I don't actually think I've ever actually voiced that to anybody ever. I don't know why I said it to her. She, like it was just so bizarre. And she held my hand and she looked at me and she said, "You know that that's not normal."
mm,
And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So going back, when I used to get my period pain, my mum just said, "Oh yeah, that's normal. I got bad period pain. Your grandma got bad period pain. You just deal with it. We go to the pharmacy, we get some drugs." And I was like, "What do you mean it's not normal? Don't other people don't other people experience this? Don't we all just go through this?" And she said, "I would highly recommend you go see this naturopath. He's a fertility specialist. He is just this wizard. Everybody that goes sees him, he's just does this magic on you and he'll know exactly what's going on." And I'm like, all right. So I went to this dude. I went to this, it was a Chinese doctor, sorry, not a naturopath. Chinese doctor. Within 2, 3 minutes of being in his office, he said, "Do you think that you might have PMDD?" And in that moment, I just looked at him and said, "What the F?" I said, like, "What the F is PMDD?" And when he explained it to me, it was like my whole body finally exhaled.
yeah. And real quick, can you actually just give like
Mm.
a quick what it is for those who might not know?
Mm. So PMDD stands for Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder. Essentially, we have this beautiful thing called a menstrual cycle, and in the second half, after we ovulate, anytime but from ovulation up until we bleed, we have these beautiful, ebbs and flows that happen in our cycle. We've got estrogen coming down, we've got progesterone rising. It looks like a roller coaster, really, when you look at it. Somebody with PMDD, their brain can't handle the normal fluctuations that are happening. So our hormones are fine. There's nothing wrong with our hormones. Our brain just can't handle the sudden rise and fall. And we go, yeah, our brain just kind of goes, malfunctions.
Mm,
So finally, when I got diagnosed, it was like, it's like I just walked out in such a daze because
mm,
leading up to that, from the moment that I got sober up until that point, I honestly thought I was going crazy. Like
mm,
throughout the month, there was just such big, because I didn't have drugs and alcohol to mask everything. So I actually had to face everything head
right.
on. And I'm like, I was so scared about going to the doctor and them giving me a bipolar disorder
Mhm,
diagnosis. I was like, I'm scared. Like, I'm terrified because there's a lot of mental health issues in my family. A lot of people suffer from alcoholism and lots of different things. There's a lot of family members that are definitely undiagnosed with a whole bunch of things. And I just didn't want to get some, this diagnosis and then be slapped with this belief like, oh, you've just, and everyone thinking you've just turned out like your mum.
Mm.
That's the one thing that I never wanted to be associated with in my life. And so getting a PMDD diagnosis was just, yeah, and it was a blessing. But then you kind of then go, well, what now?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? So yeah, so that's kind of where my journey into this, I guess, menstrual cycle awakening began. And it just every time like I learned a new information or started understanding my body more, I was just like, how do we not know about this? Why weren't we taught this?
Mm.
And yeah, it just became such an important discovery piece for me throughout my life. And I think that, going through the journey, because, I went, you go like when you're suffering that much, when you're like with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, you can be so high one moment and then just so low. And in your lowest moments, you are literally you are picking fights with everyone around you. You're breaking up with partners. You're being so rude and mean to some of the nicest people around you. And the thoughts that you have about yourself are so dark.
Mm.
And it's so hard to explain that to other people. And
Mm.
then you go and try and seek help, but you're also trying to honor the fact that you're sober. You don't want to be taking medication. So you're going out to, these health professionals that, I mean, I'm somebody that when I seek help, I want the best help. I don't care how much it costs. I only want to see the best because I've seen some of the worst. And I was seeing some of the best
Mm.
help in PMDD land, general practitioners, and they all told me that drugs were the only way,
Mm.
that being put on the pill, antidepressants, and then if that doesn't work, chemical menopause, and then a hysterectomy. And I was
Mm.
like, no, my body was saying to me, no, this not like people turn around cancer, and all of this. I'm like, surely there is other ways of being, that we can do this. And I was so lucky that this all happened at the end of 2019, start of 2020, the pandemic hits.
Wow.
So I had no choice but to go in to do the inner work. Like I just remember sitting there going, this is the universe giving you. Like you've got nowhere to go. Like there's no distractions now. I was living with my best friend who is also my sister,
Mm.
and I was like, all right, it's time. It's time to really go in. And the fitness professional in me, used to train so hard and do all the things, do challenges and everything. And when I was given this this opportunity to really work to do the inner work, I just decided I'm like, who knows how long we're going to be sitting at home doing this pandemic thing. So I
Yeah.
just decided that I would choose the lowest hanging fruit first. Like, what's the easiest thing? Because we all have things that we want to change, right? We all know that we shouldn't be eating that chocolate bar every week, or, like at that point, I was eating like, chocolate and the bag of snakes and all the things. Like I knew that there were lots of change. So I thought to myself, let's make all the things that I know that need to change in my life. Let's change all of those. And if I'm still experiencing all these symptoms, okay, then maybe we have to consider like medication and everything, but let's try and do everything else. So
Mm.
but the first thing that I went in and changed was, like I would my spirituality, like the meditation practice. Like I was like, right, you're doing it twice a day now. Like it's a non-negotiable. At the end of the day, you will turn off your phone at 8 o'clock and you will not open it again until 8 a.m. Like that time is sacred. This is the time, like your sleep is so important. And so I just did that over the coming months. I really cleaned up my nutrition. I was seeing a network chiropractor, and for those that don't know what that is, it's a chiropractor that does energy work,
Yeah.
not manipulations. So I was, I went head in. And from March to October, or it was maybe November, I managed to become PMDD symptom free and not have debilitating period pain.
Wow. Ah, that is stunning, Adriana. Like, can I just pause for a moment and witness you? Because there's so much inspiration feels like a little bit too tame. Like I just yeah, there's glory almost in like the
Mm,
way that you just even when receiving, right, medical advice, which I think feels a little bit different than other advice in our world. Like there's something about medical advice
mm,
that we almost tend to worship, right? And even in the midst of receiving medical advice that went against what your body was saying, you chose to honor and listen to your body still. That is just stunning. And I'm,
mm,
yeah, I want to witness how courageous that is because that's hard, right? Like
mm.
we outsource our authority to so many other voices in our world all the time. And so hearing that, and then, I mean, right, the pandemic and all of its complexity, but the way that you chose to show up for yourself and to take that as an opportunity and a gift instead of a liability. Wow. Thank you for sharing this with us.
Oh, that's okay. And I want to add that, you know, when we receive that type of information, it really depends on the person and your beliefs and your conditioning. When somebody is trying to tell me what to do, my 5-year-old self is stamping her foot and saying, "No, you will no. I don't believe you, and you're not going to tell me what to do, and I'm going to prove you wrong." And that became like over the years, there were so many other moments where doctors were telling me that, I went and saw doctors about having a child on my own. I hadn't had a partner. Didn't have a partner at that time, and they told me my fallopian tubes were blocked and that I was not going to be able to conceive naturally. And when you hear something like that, like it's the most devastating, like especially as a woman, you're like, what do you mean I'm not going to be able to conceive? Like that is my birthright, you know? And and it took me a few hours of like uncontrollable sobbing afterwards, being like, like again, the world was coming in on me. And then I remember just being like, sticking the finger up
Yeah.
at them going, no, I will show you that I
Yes.
will be able to do this. And I did everything and I have a beautiful boy. Like, like you can't take their advice as gospel.
Mm.
Your body will knows the way. The body will heal and it shows you and it's talking to you all the time.
Yeah. Well, and let's go there because that's part of your core message, right? Like your body is so smart and is speaking to you all the time. We just need to learn how to listen. Can you help our listeners understand what that looks like practically?
Mm. A lot of people might cringe at hearing this at start, but meditation for me
Yeah.
is everything.
Mm.
And I know lots of people say, "Oh, but I don't know how to meditate. It doesn't work for me." I'm like, trust me, if you had seen me when I started meditating, how my life and what my thoughts were at 30, like I was 30 years old, so it was 11 years ago that I
Mm.
started meditating. But I don't know. Again, my body was just like, you need to do this. Like, this is the way.
Yeah.
And just like you really, I think Viktor Frankl has a beautiful saying about this. It's about what meditation can do for you is that beautiful pause. So so when something happens to you, meditation gives you this pause before and allowing you not to react, but to respond.
So good.
And the more that you meditate, the more that you give yourself that time,
Mhm.
that pause increases and you
It's
get so much more time.
yes.
And that pause also allows you to listen to your body, because like you just there that you suddenly it's like the whisper or a slap across the face depending on how much you need to hear that message. But I just truly believe that if you don't have some sort of practice where you are sitting in silence, like people are like, oh, running is my meditation. No, I'm sorry, but your brain is literally taking in all the things around you at that moment. You actually just need to sit. And sometimes, it's some people do tea ceremonies or breath work or yeah, to me it's you got to do some sort of that type of practice
Mm.
so that you create that space for you. And I think, and like, yeah, the body is talking to you all the time. And so having that type of practice allows you to listen
Yeah.
and I think again, I'm going to repeat it, to respond and not react,
Yeah.
because the reacting is your ego, your beliefs, your conditioning, your unconscious self coming in. And I was just reading a book the other day, and I think I've known this fact for so long now, is that, we're running in subconscious mind 95% of the day. And when I
Mm.
heard that, I did it didn't really click, but it was written in a different way the other day when I was reading this book, and it says that we're conscious for 5% of the day.
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
when you hear it there, like I just got goosebumps. I'm like, I'm only conscious for 5% of the day.
Wow.
That's wild. So you're just running on autopilot. Of course, you're reacting and you're wondering, how did I get there, from A to B? And I truly believe that meditation increases that 5%.
Yeah.
Maybe it only increases to 10%, but 10% is a lot more than 5% when we think about it.
Absolutely. Ah, that's so good. Um I am a huge fan of the sacred pauses. And one of the things that, yeah, I was talking to someone at the beginning of the year about is, right, we have like this vicious cycle of the popular way to be at the beginning of the year is set these goals or,
Mm,
intentions or New Year's resolutions, right? And of course, everyone jokes about how quickly they fall away, but we don't have a sacred pause where we listen to ourselves before we set these intentions, right? And so
mm,
they're arising out of like, oh, that sounds good, or like I should be doing this or whatever, as opposed
mm,
to the like actual body wisdom of being with ourselves consciously, like you're talking about, right? And like I love the way that you're just inviting listeners into this simple practice of quiet. Like,
mm,
right? You don't need to go buy anything to get that, right? And there doesn't require any extra resources except commitment, right? And willingness
mm.
to try, even though it might feel hard and it might be scary, right? But there's so much power in that. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. Yeah.
It's yeah, and if I started off just listening to YouTube,
Mhm.
and it's always you got to find the right voice, the guided voice,
Sure.
etc. And then I had a friend that just said, "Oh, if you want to go a little bit deeper, how about, I do Vedic meditation." And so, I had a teacher, like I went all in, but this is something like it's like the gym. If
Mhm.
you're expecting to lose the 10 kgs or build muscle, etc., from one session, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. It takes devotion, it takes everyday practice, like anything. And you were talking about intentions, like I have a beautiful practice in the morning with my partner. Every single morning we cuddle and we say, I set the intention to be kind and loving to
Mm.
you and listen to you. I set the intention to connect with you more during the day. I love you. Like we say
Mm.
that every single morning because like these are the things that I'm doing every single day. They might be very, very small, but if you're adding one or two every few months, after a few years, you've got a few.
Yeah.
practices throughout your day.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, one of the things you mentioned in the email we sent was you mentioned a beautiful practice with hand on heart, 3 breaths. Can you walk us
Mm,
through that and then even just share the how it can help us reconnect with our wisdom,
mm,
our body wisdom?
mm. Yeah, there was a really tough time in my life, only a few years ago, and I started looking into heart math. It's all about, heart coherence. And when you start reading all the stuff about heart math, you're like, whoa, like our heart is so powerful.
Yes.
And when you connect heart to heart as well with somebody else, like, whoa, the magic can happen. And I think I got the practice from there, but it's just putting your hand on your heart, taking 3 deep breaths, and simply asking yourself afterwards, what is it that I need right now? But you can't rush it. Like you've actually got to take these 3 deep breaths and really settle in. And the first thing that comes to your mind, you
Mm.
got to go do.
Yeah.
And it could be so simple. It's like you need a glass of water, you're dehydrated.
Right.
you know? Or it could be you need a hug. Like go find somebody to hug. Or
Yeah.
you're like get your slippers off and put your feet to the ground.
Oh,
Or you're hungry. You
right.
need to eat. Like
Yeah.
and don't second guess it. Just act on it. And I truly believe that the universe delivers when we get a download like that from our body, the universe collapses timeline and it just opens up something for us. It expands something for us afterwards.
Mm.
And I actually have post-its all around my house that say hand on heart times three. Like
Oh, love
it's
that.
so that I remember, like I do forget. I'm not like I need reminders all the time, everywhere around me. And when you start doing that practice, so if you're not meditating and you're like, meditation is out the window for me. If you do this practice and you start doing it 3, 4, 5 times a day, I promise you, your world will shift and you will
Yes.
start becoming so much more connected with your body
Mm.
and I promise you, yeah, magic will happen.
I love that. There's a couple things that came up in me as you were sharing that. The first one was it brought to my mind this memory of this was probably 6 years ago. I was coming home and in the evening I kept seeing this weird mark on my shoulder, like almost like a bruise, like a
Wow.
almost like cuts, but I was like, what is this? Like why does my shoulder hurt so much? What's going on here? And it was literally that the bag I was carrying was so heavy that it was
Mm,
like marking my body, but I wasn't consciously like listening to my body,
mm,
say like, ouch, in the moment. And it took like seeing this to start realizing like, okay, my body and I are disconnected and I need to take a little bit more time to actually listen to her and like and honor
mm,
what I hear, right? And I love just that sticky note reminders too, right? Again, it doesn't have to be, we have apps on our phone and those are great, but sometimes sticky notes are just like brushing your teeth and seeing it at night or whatever. Like those can be so helpful and clear. Thank you. Yeah. Adriana, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work? I know you have a free resource available through your Instagram bio to start with, right?
yes, yes. So there's a Clarity Cycle bundle that you can get from my Instagram, which is the Cycle Codes, which is also the name of my podcast, which was formerly the PMDD podcast.
Yeah, awesome. And I just want to say, I think before we completely close, what would you say to a woman who is like hearing what you're sharing in your story and is noticing like, oh, I'm disconnected or I want more consciousness or like where should I start? Meditate, you'd mentioned YouTube. Like, are there any first, places to start that you would recommend?
Hmm. Find what works for you. You
Mm,
know, So you might hear meditation and like, that's not for me. And that's fine. I totally understand. It's probably not your time with meditation, and that's cool. Journaling, talk to somebody. These whatever it, yeah, you've got to get these feelings out
Mm,
somewhere, and a journaling practice can really help. That was part of my practice as well, but talking to someone, because I promise you, you're not alone. There are other people, whatever it is that you're experiencing, I promise you, there are other people experiencing it. And if you get gaslit or you go somewhere with somebody with authority and they tell you you're in your head, or they try and give you medication and they're not actually seeing and hearing you,
mm.
go to the next person, find someone else, because I promise you, there are people out there that are so willing and so available to see you and hear you. You're not alone.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so borrow Adriana's voice in your mind if that's a situation in your life. Or yeah, I love that. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for bringing us this essential wisdom. And I feel like there's something that's so clear and joyful about your presence that I trust that that translates. It's translating across my screen, and I trust that it's translating to our listeners as well.
Hmm.
I know that that is such a result of the way that you are choosing to live with intention and like just ritual and deliberate choice. It's really stunning. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Emily. It's such, being in your presence is just like so calming as well. So, yeah, it's such a beautiful experience. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Remember the sacred cycles, reclaim your radiant fire, and unleash your intuitive magic. Thank you for being here, sacred woman. Until next time.